Well, welcome back to the podcast. We're here talking about the different niches of healthcare. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Patrick. I'm very excited to have Patrick on the podcast. I've been researching his company and his experience, and I'm hopeful he can bring insight into his wealth of knowledge in the hemisphere that we're talking about. So, Patrick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, Ben, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting us to talk. I'm looking forward to our conversation. And it's a great topic. I mean, telemedicine is a very close to our heart. So look forward to talk about it. So about me, I'm from France originally. I came to do a PhD in Boston. I was very fortunate to be admitted to the mechanical engineering PhD program at MIT. That was almost 25 years ago, and I'm still here. I love it. I'm very, very long Boston, very, very long, US.
Hmm.
It's a great environment, a lot of can-do attitude, a lot of great projects, great technologies, great companies getting started, and so that's kind of what I want to be part of. Hence why I'm still here.
Great. Yeah, that's really cool. Really cool how you've become a adopted Bostonian, as they would say, I'm sure.
100%, yes.
And so, background in mechanical engineering, how did you find your way into a portal? And what is that? Can you describe the business and what your role is and how that kind of came about?
So I'll try to make it as short, I guess, to the point as possible as well. So I have a very deep background in mechanical engineering, but the moment I came to Boston and to MIT specifically, I really got fascinated about starting companies. So believe it or not, Portal is actually my third company.
Hmm.
And before that, I did two medical diagnostics companies. That one was in the field of blood glucose monitoring. The other one was
Hmm.
in neuropsychological disease detection. And with Portal, what happened is that I got a call from my PhD advisor from MIT,
Hmm.
who said, "Hey, I've got this tech. Remember it, from the lab, from back then. Well, it's ready to go now." It
Hmm.
wasn't really, nonetheless.
Of course.
As it's always the case, I mean, I think there's a big jump, between how far academia can bring things oftentimes, and then actually really what it takes to start a company. But it was intriguing enough that it really caught my attention because it was the opportunity to really transform an area of medicine that was partly overlooked. When you inject those modern drugs, now all the drugs
Hmm.
more or less that biotech is based on, because those are so-called large molecules, proteins, so to say, or antibodies, basically molecular constructs that you cannot make a pill of. Because if you make a pill out of it, your intestine, your stomach will basically destroy the drug or destroy the
Totally.
molecule.
Totally.
So as a result, you have to inject those. So what's the classical example these days? Well, Ozempic, Wegovy, all the weight loss drugs are basically biotech drugs that need to be injected. And so with the MIT technology, there was at the time really the opportunity to transform what it means to self-inject. And I felt that the needle and syringe was still a very, very old technology, probably one of the oldest medical device technologies out there. Very, very analog, together with taking a pill. I think doing an injection is probably the most analog thing that we do right now in our lives. Everything's
Hmm.
tracked. You probably have an Apple Watch, or you have, a phone that actually measures where you're going, what you're doing, and so on. But taking a pill, taking a medicine is still a very, very, very much a black box. Actually, no one really knows what the patients are doing. So I felt there was really the opportunity to transform the injection, but also to create more value through connectivity and down the line, of course, through telemedicine actually as well.
Yeah. And so, talking along those lines, I have a lot more questions about kind of the product and what medicines you're kind of catering that to. How does telemedicine have a platform in your industry and in your product?
Sure. So let me run you through kind of the typical way a patient actually does, kind of handles the drug, or kind of applies the therapy to themselves. So oftentimes it's done through so-called specialty, pharma distributors. Sometimes they even send you actually the kit basically at home. You get trained either by a nurse, or you get maybe a video tutorial that you follow at home. If it's more classical, you may also actually get the drug from, the pharmacy, like from
Right.
CVS, Walgreens, and so on. So it's actually it's tracked what happens from the time you prescribe to the time the prescription is filled. And then it's a complete unknown. And I think all of us as patients, as consumers, we've been there as well, right? I mean, I can remember many, many times, I had a prescription drug for God knows what. And, I filled the prescription. And first of all, just to get there is always a pain. So
Totally.
You gotta
It's another errand.
find the right time, remember it first of all, and go there, step in line. It's just not a great experience. And then, and then oftentimes that drug may stay there a few days, on your kitchen
Hmm.
countertop, without you
Hmm.
doing anything.
Hmm.
And as such, I think the challenge here is that honestly, no one knows what the patient is doing once they're at home. The physicians don't know. I mean, they hope the patients are doing the right thing, but how many of us have actually lied to our physicians in terms of what we do? And so as that, the pharma companies have no idea actually as well, right? I mean, they want to know the only data point they have, and it's offset, I think, by 1 or 2 weeks, is the prescription for this drug has been filled at this pharmacy, and our companies that supply that data.
Hmm.
But besides that, they don't know really what happens. And then lastly, I think the folks that really want to know are the payers.
Hmm.
And the payers too, they really don't know. I mean, is the drug working? And
Yeah.
we hope so, but are they taking it? And are we seeing in the general population the outcomes that the study basically showed that we should have, and that was the basis for us to approve this drug for reimbursement?
Does
So
it reflect the
all
clinical trials?
does it reflect the clinical trials? Exactly, exactly. So all the stakeholders, probably including the patient himself or herself, and his or her family, they all want to know what's going on. But right now, there's just no easy way to do that. If you now expand it on top of it to say, well, let's look at injectable medicines with all the stigma that's associated with it, it's actually even worse. People don't want to talk about it. I think Ozempic has changed that a little bit, or all the weight loss drug, the GLP-1s have changed that, but it's still by and large a very unnatural thing to do. You're kind of poking yourself, it hurts. In a popular culture, needle and syringe is associated with illicit, drug use and kind of
Okay.
really bad stuff and so on. So I think in aggregate, by combining this idea of connectivity together with a device that can actually enable it, that's at the right price point, that's cost effective to do that,
Yeah.
and that's easy to use. That's kind of, in the end, sort of the vision that we're seeing actually right now. And so if we think about it, 10 years from today, are we really going to still have very analog ways to inject? No, it's going to be all digital, all tracked, and so on. And that's what we want to do.
Yep. How do you see a comparison and contrasting kind of world with continuous glucose monitors and that kind of, insulin administration, because that's I think
Yes.
what the typical technology is what I'm thinking and what immediately comes to mind. But then you also have, people who still self-inject insulin because they don't have CGMs. But then there's also people who are using Lovenox for bridging for injectables. Give me an idea of how that kind of compares and contrasts.
It's a great analogy. I unfortunately don't know the exact numbers in terms of market penetration, but I know that Insulet is really one of the market leaders there. And they're still totally underpenetrated in the broader kind of insulin delivery
Oh
market.
yeah.
It's
Oh
still a
yeah.
niche product. I mean, it's mostly designed for type 1 diabetes, but it can be, of course, applied to type 2. God forbid, if I had diabetes, I mean, that's kind of what I would want to do. I would want to have
Mhm.
something, on me all the time,
Yep.
with a blood glucose monitor that can monitor, almost like some smarts that basically just takes care of me. But I know it's not commonly shared. I mean, some patients just don't want to have anything actually attached to them, or they just want to have the quick done and done injection and be done with it. So I think there's still a lot of opportunities there to really provide, I think, more value at the end for the patient, and that in turn will kind of drive what form of device they basically adopt.
Hmm.
So I can tell you a little bit in the case of our device. So we have two
Yeah.
devices. I've brought them here so your audience can see them. So
Perfect.
we have
Yes.
the flagship, basically needle-free product. This one is actually really designed for, I would say, niche applications. So
Okay.
rare diseases, disease areas where
Like
the drugs are
biologics.
amazing. Biologics, of course. The drugs are amazing. Oftentimes they basically are intravenous. And as such, the quality of life becomes kind of the number one complaint. And those patients will, of course, need those drugs for the rest of their lives. Otherwise, they won't be doing so well. And as such, really, quality of life becomes a big one. And so, for those drugs, the needle free is actually great because it can not only inject the drug, but it's actually super easy to use. The drug comes into a format like this. It looks like a syringe, but if you open it up, there's no needle. There's
I
just
see.
a small hole right there where my finger is, and then through that hole, which is much smaller than a needle, basically the drug comes out. It comes out at high speed. And then we use the drug itself to kind of pierce the skin and deliver the dose. So that's kind
Oh,
of
okay.
product one.
Yeah.
Then we have product two, which is our latest, actually. It's called Prime Nexus. So it's based on the same platform as this one, and both are connected, and I can tell you more about it. And so this one here is much smaller and uses the fact that pharma spends a lot of time and effort to validate their drug into the container that contains the drug. And we cannot use in our needle-free device, we cannot use the existing container, which is a glass syringe with a needle that's attached to it. And so what
Right.
we created is basically a cassette that wraps itself into the syringe. And so the syringe is in here,
Sure.
and then becomes the interface to basically connect the two devices.
Oh, I see. I see.
And so that allows us to take existing therapies, and because we're not touching the drug, we can actually accelerate the time to market and connect those therapies to the cloud. Again, while using the same platform as this. So that's, and so here again, it's a fully automated injection in both cases. It's a very consistent injection because we have a computer system that makes sure you always get the same experience,
That's what
not kind
yeah.
of, an all over the place, injection.
Sure.
And then it's connected. And the way it's connected is that it's an always on connection using Wi-Fi. So once it's on the patient's network, it basically lives there and will, of course, with the patient's consent, will basically provide the data to the cloud, and then each stakeholder can then retrieve that data when they want, and of course with the patient's permission as well.
Wow. Yeah. And does it also remind the patient when to administer? I mean, is that
Correct.
yeah, because we
So
were
there's a
talking about those issues.
Yep. So it comes with a companion app that's optional. So in other words, you don't need it to run the device. And the companion app will have actually a lot of things. It will have not only reminders, it will track, when was the last injection. It will provide context actually on the therapy. As new information comes in, it will kind of distill it and provide basically context for the patient. And of course, all the stakeholders can also interact with. So, there's a communication with the physician, and they can reorder supplies actually as well. And we think there's an opportunity down the road for AI to basically manage the data and sort of provide more meaning and more value actually to it.
Yeah, sort through what is actually coming back. I'm assuming, I mean, if you're producing a lot and you're getting a lot of feedback to the cloud platform, it's all about how do you sort this out? How do you
Correct.
summarize this for the stakeholders? How do you summarize this for the general population, right?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how are you specifically working with healthcare companies like pharma companies to deliver this? Like, ones who are producing biologics and DMARDs and this kind of medication? Or are you working with patients directly or clinics or all the above?
No, unfortunately, I mean, I think the number one rule in entrepreneurship is where's the money, right? And go where the money is. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, and I hope this is not, too arrogant to say that, but oftentimes the patient either doesn't have money or doesn't want to pay.
totally.
Right. I think we want the healthcare payers basically to pay for that. The physician have an important role, but it's not. It's just to prescribe, but to make sure that this is the right treatment for the patient. And so really the money actually at the end of the day and the know-how and the access to the drug is with the pharma companies.
Right.
And so it's a I think there is probably down the road a possibility to become a fully vertically integrated pharmaceutical company that has a device, but that's going to take a long time. And so it's easier for us to basically provide a service
Yep.
and a product to the pharmaceutical industry,
Yep.
who for those drugs are going to need a device anyway,
Hmm.
and just provide basically a better one and do partnership with them. So it's a I think that's positive, but also challenges as well. So on the positive side, there
Yeah,
is a
tell me.
willingness to pay for innovation, for differentiation, but at the same time, I think the challenge that we have is that, well, first of all, there is already an installed base that's there, right? I mean, there are the auto injectors are there, or the syringes are there, and that's actually what you're looking for is for the device to be enabling of something, that enables the injection of the drug. And so I can maybe talk to you more bit about this
Yep.
a bit
Yep.
later. So challenge number one. Then challenge number two is, well, it's the pharma world, right? And so it's a conservative industry,
Yep.
rightfully so, of course. But as a result, things take time, and so there's a bit of a mismatch between how fast we can move as a
Hmm.
device company
Hmm.
versus um, a pharmaceutical company that where clinical development is measured almost in decades, right? I mean, it's a bit faster now, I suppose, but
Yeah,
nonetheless,
yeah, yeah.
it's so there's a bit of this mismatch, and so we can get revenue that are meaningful for that, but also it takes time overall to make things happen actually as well.
No, 100%. I think that's where I was thinking. I'm like, yes, pharma has the money to pay for this product, but do they always love to adopt things quickly? Absolutely not. They're super, super conservative
Yes,
from a
that's right.
general sense
Yes,
in medication delivery because they're like, hey, we know the auto injectors work. We know they're affordable. Do we care about delivery for the patient? Sure, we'll say we care, but we probably don't really care that much because we already see the bills coming in from the insurance companies. So it's
that's
like
right. That's right.
they're not super, super consumed or concerned, even if you are concerned and saying, we want the patient to actually get the medication that they need. And they're like, well, we already sold it, so we don't
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
we don't, they have to say they care, but you know what I mean?
It depends, and I think here the one has to go beyond kind of the idealist naivete, so to say. One of them, for example, these days for us is in our industry, there's a big drive to try to remove basically those auto injectors because
Yeah.
they are extremely polluting actually. A device like this has 12 parts and they're made out of different materials. Some are made out of hard plastic. There's of course the glass, the metals. There are three springs actually in this one, so it's it's
Wow.
and
And so what's
so
what's different with yours compared to that?
well for this one for the Nexus device, the what makes it possible is that the cassette, which is this one here, is made out of recyclable plastic and is
Wow.
also very, very low cost. And then this component here is like one of your electric toothbrushes. So you can
That's
reuse it
perfect.
for 3, 4 years, no problem.
Sure.
And as such, you can amortize the cost of this over many, many injections. While this is not only super, super cheap, but also it's environmentally friendly because you can actually recycle it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, it helps with waste.
The naivete here is that pharma would be embracing sort of sustainability because again, I mean, there's going to be for GLP-1s, just believe it or not, by the end of the decade, we'll need 1 billion devices per year, like single use. You do use it once you're done. If you put them, I don't have two, but let's imagine you just put two and two, like
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
back to
Yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah.
If you
Yep.
run the math, it goes 3 times around the earth.
Oh yeah. Oh, totally.
It's
Totally.
crazy. So anyway,
A
so this is a
billion is
big
so much
problem.
bigger, so much
Yeah.
thick.
And by the way, it's acknowledge that this is a problem. But if your solution costs more than this solution here that they have, there's no
Yep.
chance that they're going to
Yep.
actually do that. So
That's all
I
they
think
see.
it's either it's the economy is stupid, like it needs to be cost effective, which by the way, I think if it's sustainable, it should cost less. I mean, just there's otherwise a logical flaw. And of course, there's volumes, producing volumes have a role to play, but I think at the limit, there should be also a cost benefit because that's a form of sustainability actually as well. The other way you can win is if you're enabling. And so what does this mean? It means that what does a drug need? And the drug will sort of drive what the device needs to be. For both our devices, what they can do very well, because they're using an electromechanical linear motor. So it's a linear motor that can produce 10 times more force for the Nexus than this one,
Then the
and
auto
100
injector.
times more force with this one. We can actually inject very, very viscous drugs that are like 500 times, I'm not making it up, 500 times the viscosity of water. We can inject that. And because it has a feedback loop where it makes sure that the injection from A to B is going to be always the same duration, we get a very consistent patient experience that you cannot get with a so-called open loop device, like a dumb device that doesn't know what it's
Yep.
pushing actually against. The
Yep.
portal devices sense the drug in real time and kind of adjust parameters
Mhm.
to make sure that it's always the same experience. So we can enable those very high viscosity injection
Mhm.
for which there's no device that like this one, like the auto injector that basically exists. The other thing we can do is enable larger volumes that are, I would say, okay, I can actually show you. So a 1 ml injection, which is your typical biologic, is about
Yep.
this
One
size.
cc.
A 2 ml is about this size. And so the latest trend is 2.5 times this, which is a 5.5 ml injection. And so a 5.5 ml injection, which actually, by the way, works really well, the tissue is able to actually take that on. It's just a big problem. It takes a minute to do the injection, which is a long time for you to have something stuck in you.
Yeah.
And a lot of things can go wrong during 1 minute. I mean, I mean, I'm sure you go to the gym. I try to do a plank for a minute. At least for me, after 30 seconds, I'm like, gee, are we done yet?
Is it done? No, it's 15 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. 15 exactly. That's the worst. Or you
Yep.
have the last 15 seconds to do.
Yep.
So here with the portal device, we can actually accelerate that duration and also make it very consistent
Hmm.
with a true beginning of dose and a true end of dose actually as well. So
Hmm.
those are the two things I think that we can do very, very well that no other device actually can do. And then for the needle-free one, of course, you get all those benefits plus, well, it's needle-free actually as well, which some patients prefer. I mean, most definitely, yeah.
And
So
and
that's
that's the
how we
big
can.
selling point.
It's a big selling point. That's right.
Yeah. And I mean that's incredible. It's incredible that you're able to accelerate that. Accelerate that time, accelerate how much you're actually able to inject. Share a little bit more about how you're utilizing what technology otherwise you're using. You mentioned we want to get AI involved in terms of summarizing our data for the investors and everybody, but are you using the telemedicine platform for like interviewing the patients, or are you leaving that up to kind of the pharmaceutical company? How does your role play in that?
It's a amazing question. I think really, really great question. I think it's a challenge actually. I think first of all, on the telemedicine side, what we're seeing is that up to this point, there hasn't been really a cost-effective device that could enable the connectivity basically at scale. So
Hmm.
reusable devices like the Nexus, like the prior generation,
Yeah,
were much bigger. They were more like the Prime device,
more
kind of
bulky.
much more, they didn't have kind of this always on connectivity actually as well. So
Mm.
you get very inconsistent data sets, and it couldn't scale. In other words, so first of all, I think there's a point in time now where we can actually really enable that. In addition to that, though, I mean, there are multiple platforms out there that are readily available, right? I mean,
Mm.
there's I think generating so the quote unquote the pipes that connect, the cloud to the device, to the stakeholders, the patient, the physician, or the payers and stuff. All of this actually multiple providers that do that. And so how do you I think how do you unify actually those environment and make sure that the data kind of can operate sort of in between those different systems? And finally, I think the thing that we struggle with is, well, it's actually not really our drug, no, it's our partner's drug. And so as we create the app, we also don't feel that we should be in the sort of in the business of practicing medicines through an app. I mean, that's really, I mean, it's either the
Clinician or pharmaceutical.
exactly either the pharmaceutical company or even better, maybe the clinicians as well. So I think there is a disconnect that's there, and I think um, it's a challenge. I think what I've seen is that there's a company called Cadence. I don't know if you came across them,
Heard of them? Yep.
where they basically start with a platform and then the device kind of are generic actually to that. And they're really targeting basically health systems that are also fully integrated as well, kind of
Right.
trying to solve that. But um, I think the challenge at the end of the day, it's still each drug is different. And so I
Hmm.
think there's probably a great company to be created on the per disease area state. I think there's probably a great company to be created there as well.
Well, that could be your side project.
Well, I'll give you another one. I think the other one that I would love to get your thoughts actually on that, because fertility treatment for couples or women who
Hmm.
want to do the IVF treatment,
Hmm.
it's basically three drugs. It's completely analog because, in fact, it's even worse. The drug doesn't even come in a pre-filled syringe. It comes in a vial like this,
Yep.
and then the patient has to
And
draw
so
the
you have to
vial. And if
draw it up.
they have to do reconstitution, I think there's a place there that we kind of, its own company where everything is digitized, but also the device is part of it actually as well. At
Great.
the same time, though, what do you do with the drugs, right? I mean, I think you'd have to either use generics and kind of find someone to make them, but I think the better one actually are still branded. So you'd have to do a deal with either Merck Serono, or maybe with Ferring, which are the two big
Right.
competitor, or maybe you do both deals with them and you become the. I mean, I think we're 90% there. There's still that last 10%. How do you make the business model work? I think to me it's still not clear, but I think there's an opportunity there. What I do know, it's not going to come from the pharma company either, right? So I do think there is a third party company that kind of could have this enveloping strategy, so to say.
Yep. Yep. To kind of connect all the dots together.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's most how companies come in. They see, like your company came in. You see a niche. You see a lack of material or device, or you see a lack, something is lacking. I guess that's a bigger picture.
That's right.
Um, and from a medical perspective, I think with IVF treatments, I mean, it is so prehistoric almost in how we approach it. And I agree with you. I think the big thing for me is the deliverability, and the cost is just outrageous. I mean,
Yes,
if a person wants to have a child and like donate to the world, why are we making it, hundreds of thousands of dollars?
yes, yes, that's right.
So I think cutting down on the costs, like we were talking about, cutting down on the whatever it be, the drug storage or the medication administration, or everything along the line adds up over time. And so for me, it's always, how do we simplify? How do we simplify?
Yeah,
How do we cut out these steps, making it as easy for the patients as possible? I mean, that's what your company is basically built on. How do we make it as easy for them as possible?
100%. Yeah, and so here, I think the question for us, from a strategic point of view, do we stay in our lane, right?
Sure.
And really focus on what we're extremely good at, which is rapid development of medical grade injection devices.
Hmm.
Or how do we branch out into kind of more the therapy area? I mean, the connectivity also. I mean, we've got a platform actually that's ready for scale up. It can connect all the different stakeholders. And
Hmm.
of course, certainly we use it to pitch to our pharmaceutical partners, to kind of share them the vision. But we haven't scaled it yet, actually, either. And it's not clear through our pharmaceutical partners how we're actually going to scale it. And in fact, I can give you, these are older examples, but every time we did two deals where there was a digital component
Hmm.
to it, which was key as part of the negotiation to get the deal done. And once the deal was done, and folks looked at it more closer. We're like, oh, gee, well, why don't we just focus on the device for now? We'll do the digital later on, like the connectivity. We'll do it later on. Actually, was kind of universally what we got. So I think it's still there's still opportunities there. I believe that with a device, that when a patient doesn't have to do one more step to connect
Hmm.
it, right? And I think
Hmm.
I think the best way is still, we explore multiple ways, but I think the best way is still a Wi-Fi connection, which either the patient has enough tech knowledge to actually do it, or you can have a nurse or someone actually kind of guide them to set it up. And so it's basically one code that you put in with your Wi-Fi
Hmm.
credentials, and then it sits there. I think that's still a better way to do this. And so in this particular case, the patient, of course, with their consent, doesn't have to do one more step for the greater system to get that data. I have, maybe you have this one as well, but I have at home a Wi-Fi scale, for weight measurement. It's probably like 4 years old.
Oh, no way.
It's pretty amazing. It runs on four AA batteries, uh, and it's been measuring the whole family's weight actually
Yeah.
continuously for the past 4 years. It's amazing. So
And
I,
it
I
tracks
think that
everything. It tracks the
it tracks
changes,
everything. Yeah, yeah.
body
It knows who
measurements,
it
all that
is
stuff.
based on because everyone's weight is a bit different. So it knows, oh, this must be your wife, or this must be your kids, and so on.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, it knows all that. So I think that gives me hope that so my central tenet is that if we can provide the data in a seamless way, then eventually the value of it will actually come out. And I think with very simple measurements like patient X this day injected that drug, oh, and by the way, that drug has all those manufacturing parameters, lot number, expiration date, and so on. And as such, just that very simple data, which is just a timestamp as to when the patient has injected themselves, already will be enormously transformative. And then with the power of AI, and this is kind of what we're experimenting on right now, do this not at scale at the patient population level, you can really start to understand how patients are using that particular drug. You can measure the effectiveness of the drug. If it's an obesity drug, well, if your scale is connected
Totally.
to the app, well, suddenly you get this almost for free. And
And
so
this is
I think that really
accurate.
fascinates me.
Oh, it's super fascinating to me as well, because you finally have accurate data, real world, not stuck in a lab.
Yes,
So
that's
this
right.
isn't like hypothetical data to follow, but now you can actually say, hey, we had 100,000 patients. Here's our sample size. And I mean, that's almost Framingham heart study size.
Yes, that's right.
You start getting to very, very large levels and saying it's super effective because they are reminded, because of these parameters, because of the Wi-Fi connection, because of the AI integration tools that we have set up, if you get to that point kind of thing. And
That's
so
fine. That's
I
fine. Yeah.
like I like the dreaming. I like the dreaming and
Yes.
scheming of where you're kind of leading everybody. What are this has been a great conversation so far. What are your I mean, that kind of shares with me your hopes and dreams of where to go to and where you hope to end up. Well, what are other than this connectivity, what would you say some or other few challenges that just kind of get away? We've talked about a few pharma, conservative nature, but why don't you just share just a little bit and then maybe we can close out just kind of sharing about what the dreams are otherwise and what next
Sure.
steps are
Sure.
over the next year or
Yeah.
5 years
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
see actually coming to fruition.
Yeah, but I think the obvious other challenge I think that every entrepreneur has is how do you scale the company and how do you scale the team,
Hmm.
right? And how do you keep it all
Hmm.
together at the same time? And I think what's interesting, what I find actually really almost amusing is that as one gets older, and because of my position as head of the company, I end
Yeah.
up, spending a lot of time recruiting. And so over time, I probably have two generations worth of recruits. And it's really fascinating to see how each generation approaches things very differently, and you need to integrate that basically into your leadership style actually as well. So I think to make this work, we have a few central tenets. I think one of them is transparency, transparency within limits actually as well. I
Yeah.
would say it's maybe it's careful transparency or relative transparency, because it's easy to
Conservative
say.
transparency.
Well, I'll tell you actually really what the issue. The issue is that there is a belief, maybe naive belief, to say, well, I'm going to be super transparent, and then it's going to be out there, and then people can make up their mind, and that's wrong. Actually, I think it's always context dependent. You need to put whatever you're saying. You need to make sense of it for the young engineer that doesn't even know what it means because it's their first job. What does it mean in the investors asking for, like, XYZ, board seat or whatever, whatever kind of typical thing that you have
Sure.
as a company. You need to really frame it. And I think framing is an important thing. I would say honest framing is what we need, because you can certainly frame things in a way, that it can be disingenuous. I think it's been a big lesson to just to really understand how the different stakeholders will actually interpret the data. What does it mean, if you just see this for the first time? So I think that's been a big one. And but transparency nonetheless is important, because I think it's important that we in the startup we don't have time for any BS basically. Right?
Totally.
It's life and death every day.
Yep.
We try to make progress, and as such, you want to really make sure that there's no friction that's there because people are wasting their time,
Mhm.
gossiping or interpreting things, making things bigger than they are. So I think transparency is important there. But transparency also is something that you have to live every day, right? It's not enough just to say, oh, we have this as a corporate culture, we're transparent. But every day you need to reinforce that, because transparency, I think, only works with trust. That they know that you're transparent, and they trust that what you're transparent about is actually also accurate as well.
Valid. Yeah.
So there's almost this repeat game, I would say, or
Hmm.
repeat interaction that you need to make
Hmm.
sure is there. So I think that's been a big one. And again, it's just fascinating to see how every generation has different sensibilities. During COVID, our younger folks were extremely, extremely anxious. And so we had to really, I think, as a management team, we had to really integrate that and acknowledge it, right? And so, and it's not everyone
Hmm.
for themselves, and we have to take care of the kind of the our junior folks and so on. So that's, I think, one of them. But scaling is I think, is also fun too. We just had today just one of our interns basically finished her project, and she just did so well, and it's just great pleasure, just great pride to see how you can develop people. And she's gonna do. I think she's gonna have an amazing career. I hope we can keep her at some point, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's always the hardest thing, find talented people and keeping them around. Well, very cool. I think your product is great. I think the scaling idea is, I mean, as a small business owner, you have to have that. If you don't have that, there's no point in being a small business owner unless you just want to stay the status quo. But if you're trying to help people, I think in your field where you are, I think you only get more intrinsic value the more people that you're able to help and the more efficient you're able to make the process. I mean, since I kind of dabble in primary care, work more in emergency care, I'm just very curious about all these kind of medicines that are coming out. I mean, I was going to say when you were in your initial kind of explanation, you said, how many times do providers just send a prescription and say, well, they better take it. I hope they do.
Yeah,
But a lot of my emergency decisions are
yeah.
did this patient take their blood thinner like they said they did? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
how do I get to track that? Or is this patient taking their, their insulin? And I don't have any way to follow that other than
Yes, that's
the
hard.
word of mouth or,
Yeah,
their
yeah.
caregiver who's giving it to them. But if we have some way to track, that would
No,
change a
and
lot of practice.
it would, and yet at the same time, one cannot help but think that for some patients, it's just too much sharing, right?
Mm, hmm.
There's a in particular for me, I'm clearly an engineer, but there's no doubt about that. But I think, yeah, of course, it would be fun. You do track everything, it's like a Formula One car. You just know exactly
Man, you have
what it does.
every little thing.
Exactly, every parameter. I mean, that's kind of the dream, I think, for your job, right? That you come in, patient, it's maybe they even have already the Apple Watch, and you can connect to it, kind of
Oh
see
yeah,
what it's in there.
yeah.
Um,
I
I
mean,
think it will happen in some form. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
no, no, no. I mean, it can happen in some form. I mean, we see that with I think defibrillator. No, implanted cardiac defibrillators, so ICDs. So from Medtronic or
Nice.
Global Science, or so what we do is they say they come in for chest pain or lightheadedness or dizziness, and we say,
Interesting.
hey, interrogate that device. And so our techs or nurses will just send that specific device's
I love
information
it.
over to them, and then they'll send us a data sheet from like the past 3 months of everything that's happened from a cardiac perspective.
Unbelievable. But you have the request goes, you have to basically contact with Medtronic or with the manufacturer, and then it comes back to you. That's amazing.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, I get this in my car. Actually, the key has it stores a lot of data that
Really?
the dealership can read. I
Huh.
always find this just magical. Actually, oh yeah, this happened.
And they're like, yeah, we know.
So yeah, we know exactly.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, Patrick, any closing thoughts? Anything you can want to share with our crew about maybe dreams for your product for the next 5 years, or
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think the dream to me is that not only for chronic use, right, for patients on various biologics and so on, but also for any form of injection, we have some form of product like the Nexus device, right? So 10 years from now, the dream is that not only every chronic patient, but also every doctor's office, every hospital, maybe every ICU has something like that, such that when you do an injection, you minimize the amount of medical errors that can actually happen, because with the Nexus device, you can actually know what's been injected through an RFID tag that's in the cassette. So when you put
right?
the two together here, as you can see, it kind of recognizes the drug. This is just a generic drug that our engineers came up
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
And so all of this can then be linked to the patient's medical record, right? So
Hmm.
in real time. So I think that, to me, that's the dream. I know it's done in some forms right now. I think the on a given floor, the nurse would basically scan the patient, scan the
Hmm.
medicine. But
Hmm.
what if all of this was basically much more seamless? So I think we can actually get there. And
Yeah, more streamlined.
so the dream, really, the overall dream is digitification, I guess, of the administration of medicines. So I think that's really the dream, such that we get the complete overview. And I think, to me, I mean, the question of the patient, will the patient actually allow that? I think if they see a benefit from it, they will. If it's someone else's benefit, that's a bit more challenging. But I think the benefit here is, oh yeah, my doc really now is part of the team. He or she knows what's going on. I
Hmm.
feel taken care of. And by the way, the outcomes show for themselves too. So I think these are the positive feedback loops that we believe are possible, actually, again, through smart connected devices that are easy to use and kind of seamlessly connected.
And why not use the tech that is continuing to grow? Why not put it into our health, into our
Right.
to building
That's right.
longevity and to helping
Yep.
people become more healthy? Yeah,
That's
you're
right.
doing great things, Patrick. I'm very
Thank you.
excited
Thank you.
to see what comes and to keep following along. Maybe if these interviews keep progressing, maybe we'll check in at next year or 6 months and just see
Happy
how
to.
things are
Happy
going.
to, Ben. It'll be my pleasure. Thanks for
Yeah,
inviting us. Really great to meet.
yeah, absolutely. Well, good connecting with you.